Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR HALACHA. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Tuesday, January 1st, 2019, 24th day of TEVES. We're starting a new unit now on the general rule announced by Hashem to us near the end of Parshas Kedoshim, and it tells us to not go b'chukas hagoy, to not go in the way of the nations around us. Now, we have to know exactly what that means because uh, here's a funny one. I mean, the nations around us wear shoes, right? So does that mean we can't wear shoes? No, of course it doesn't mean that. So what does it mean exactly to not follow in the ways of the Goyim that are around us? And we're going to learn the parameters today. The Rambam says that it means don't follow them in their actions, their knowledge, and their understanding. Okay, but that doesn't get us all the way to like the practical examples that we need to know. The Chinuch says, the Sefer HaChinuch says, that the main thinking of this law when God gave it to us was that He wanted to distance us. We need, in a certain way, to keep our identity, to live in a good Jewish way, and the idea of not following in all of their knowledge, actions, and understandings was to keep a Jew distinct and separate so that we could retain our people status, as the Jewish people. But what are the parameters? Again, non-Jews wear shoes. I wear shoes. So we need to learn the parameters. So when you look into the commentaries, they start to like kind of narrow it down. One of the things are is that the non-Jews, if they have idolatrous practices, so any practice that seems to lead towards their idol, so that would be the kind of thing, number one, that we should not be doing. Any practice that seems to follow in the way of idolatry. The Maharik, an early commentator, said that it meant that if there are Jewish practices that are obscure in origin, then we shouldn't be following in the ways of those obscure things without any understandable origin. I don't know if like maybe Halloween would be an example of that. What are you doing celebrating Halloween? We don't barely even know what it stands for, and all the non-Jews around you are doing that. Why are you following in those ways? That might be the kind of thing that he's referring to. Certainly, if the non-Jews around us have immodest practices, well, we do not follow in immodest practices. So those are some early parameters in understanding what it means when God said to us, don't act like the nations that are around you. The Vilna Gaon says that a Jew, in order to be really, really safe, should do customs that follow from the ways of the Jews. Like the Jews have the custom to, can't think of one right now, but something that typically was originated by Jews, like eating gefilte fish on Shabbos, I don't know, something like that. Those are practices certainly that are proper for a Jew to follow. Now we're getting more specific into very concrete examples. We know that the Medrash tells us that the Jews in Egypt were known for lo shinu es shemam. They did not change their names to have Egyptian names. Now that might seem to imply that one of the ways that we don't copy the non-Jews around us is that if the Jews around us choose, Christian-sounding names, then we shouldn't be copying their Christian-sounding names. But Rav Moshe says that that doesn't mean that everybody has to be called Moshe and Yitzchak and Shloima. He says that if there are names that you can clearly know originated with the Jews and in the way they lived in certain countries, like the example I can think of is how certain Jews way back in the time of Alexander, maybe for one reason or another, had to name their children Alexander, and then that became an acceptable name that Jewish people had accepted back then because of where they lived. And that would sort of like bring that name into Jewish practice. And then he said it's okay to have that kind of name that has been clearly accepted by Jews as a proper way to call yourself. So one more, he says, this is that. Sorry, I lost you there. That Moshe, of course, is a Jewish name. That's the name of our leader, Moshe. So if you name your child Moshe, but on forums you want to call him Moses, or in school you want to call him Moses, so there are great rabbis who say that that's totally okay, because you're clearly referring to your child as Moshe. You're just saying it in the English way that's around you, which is Moses, and that too most of our rabbis would say is an acceptable way, and it's not called following the non-Jews around you to call your child Moses. Okay, we'll continue on in this theme about what things are called following the nations around you and what aren't. And so, yeah, log on again tomorrow for more. Bye bye.